Welcome to the Mistaway video training series. In this video we'll show you how to prepare a Mistaway Gen 3 Plus or its predecessor Gen 3 for the wintertime. In a hard freeze, fluid trapped in the pump, valves, nozzles and fittings expands and exerts tremendous pressure on the components that can shorten their life. Some components, like a flow meter in the tankless unit, can split and leak the next time the unit runs. So you absolutely need to winterize the systems if you live in a part of the country where the mercury routinely drops below freezing more than a couple of times per year or stays that way more than a day. Actually, it's a good idea to perform these steps no matter where they are. The systems have a hard life. They are constantly filled with dilute insecticide that is chemically aggressive and is filled with suspended solids whose apparent purpose in life is to clog filters. Additionally, variations in local water chemistry can create unpredictable biological activity that can also wreak havoc on the units and the nozzle circuit. Flushing the system with fresh water and routinely cleaning or replacing the various filters, such as the water supply on a tankless unit, pump intake, pump discharge, and nozzle tips, is a giant step towards ensuring that the system will remain healthy and effective. To winterize your tankless unit, you'll need a few tools: a pair of channel-lock pliers, paper towels, and all-purpose cleaner. There are 5 steps to winterizing a Mistaway tankless system. In this video we'll demonstrate and review each of the following steps. Flush insecticide from the coupler, dosing pump, and insecticide flow line. Flush pump and agitation valve. Clean the batch tank. Evacuate fluid from the solenoid and flow meter. Use compressed air to blow out the nozzle circuit. Step 1. Flush insecticide from the coupler, dosing pump, and insecticide flow line. First, we'll remove the insecticide bottle from the unit and set it aside. Remove the plus cap and place it on a separate bottle that only has fresh water. Snap the fresh water bottle and plus cap back into the coupler. Next, follow this sequence to execute a manual charge. This process will activate only the bellows pump and flush it with fresh water. Press menu and scroll down to maintenance. Press the green enter button to go into that menu. Use the down arrow and scroll down till you get to CHG, which stands for charge. Locate and press the green enter button for 5 seconds. Doing this will activate and charge only the bellows pump. The duration for this charge function will be based upon what dilution rate your machine was set up for. Run a complete charge using only fresh water. You'll know you successfully activated the bellows pump because dose would be displayed on the countdown. Let the dosing cycle complete its entire duration before continuing. Press the release button on the coupler and remove the fresh water bottle from the coupler. Next, you'll remove the plus cap from the fresh water bottle and reinsert only the plus cap into the coupler. Execute a manual charge just as we did before with the fresh water. Doing a charge with only the plus cap installed will force air into the line, evacuating as much fluid as possible from the insecticide line. Step 2. Drain the batch tank, flush pump, and agitation valve. This next step requires us to drain the internal batch tank of dilute insecticide in accordance with the label instructions and local regulations. Press the red menu button and use the down arrow to scroll down to maintenance. Press the green enter button to go into that menu. Once you are there, press the down arrow again until you get to DRN, which stands for drain. Press and hold down the green enter button for 5 seconds to activate this feature. The system will then turn on and begin the draining process. When the tank is empty, you'll hear a pump sucking air. At this point, press the red button and stop the system. Once the system batch tank has been emptied, run an inspect cycle to flush the batch tank and nozzle circuit with fresh water. To do an inspect cycle, press the red menu button 1 time and use the down arrow and scroll down until you get to maintenance. Press the green enter button to go into that menu. Then press the down arrow until you get to INS, which stands for inspect. If you have a zone kit installed, you will see INS1 and INS2. Activate the inspect cycle from either of these zones by holding down the green enter button for 5 seconds. Do an inspect cycle for each zone installed. During the last inspect cycle, turn off the valve at the faucet and disconnect the water supply tubing at the water inlet. Once this has been completed, allow the batch tank to run empty and press stop. Step 3. Clean the batch tank. Since the unit is empty, now would be a good time to clean the batch tank and float switch. It's suggested that you clean these two items at least once a year. To do this, we need to get inside the unit. Locate and remove 4 plastic thumb screws that are surrounding the controller and 4 thumb screws that are in each of the 4 corners. The controller is the brains of the unit and is the module that has the display and button. With the 4 thumb screws removed, pull the controller out from the resting position. When pulling the controller out in upward motion, you will notice that the wiring harness is attached. Maneuver the controller back through the hole that you just pulled it from. The batch tank that we'll be working on will be on the right, so find somewhere on the left to rest the controller gently. Remove the black plastic shroud up and out of the system. When doing this, be careful that the dosing pump is still attached to the coupler. There should be enough tubing to lift it up and out of the system and lay it over the left side of the walls. Once you have done this, you'll have access to the batch tank and mixing vessel. If more cleaning is involved, or you need more room to work with, simply remove the side walls. You can do this by locating 9 Phillips screws in the back and at the base of the unit. Now that you have access to the batch tank, locate the float switch and use your channel lock pliers to remove the nut on top of the switch. Disconnect the wiring from the harness. Slide the float switch towards you and away from the internal batch tank. Use your cleaning solution and wipe off all parts of the float switch. Once the float has been removed, wipe down the batch tank and remove any residual that has been left behind. Since we're finished working inside the unit, we can reinsert the float switch. Position the float switch back into the same harness in which it was removed. Reconnect the wires and tighten down the nut with your channel lock pliers. Next, remove the suction strainer from the bottom of the 1/2 inch white PEX pipe. Use a water hose to wash off any debris and reinsert it back onto the pipe. Now that we're finished working inside the unit, we can reinsert the control module back into the system. Flip the module over to expose the backside and locate and match each of the color-coded wiring harnesses. Ensure that all connections are firmly seated before moving forward. Once you have all the connections seated, take the module and shroud and put it back into place. Step 4. Evacuate fluid from the solenoid and flow meter. In this next step, we'll need to drain all the fluid from the flow meter assembly. To do this, verify that the 3/8 inch water line is shut off and disconnected. On the controller, scroll down to Maintenance and then locate WINT, which stands for Winterize. Hold down the green button for 5 seconds. Doing this will activate the solenoid valve to the open position. To drain the water, tilt the unit to the right and you should see water trickling out. Step 5. Use compressed air to blow out the nozzle circuit. Next, use a portable air compressor to evacuate as much fluid from the nozzle circuit as possible. Mistaway Systems carries an adapter that connects the 1/4 inch line to the air compressor hose. Simply unscrew the last 2 nozzles on the nozzle circuit and turn the compressor on. This will force air through the lines, blowing out as much fluid as possible. It doesn't take long to do this, and it isn't necessary to remove all the fluid. However, keep in mind the more fluid removed, the less likely something is going to go wrong during a hard freeze. The winterizing process should not take any longer than 20 minutes when adding on to routine service calls. With that being said, let's review the tankless winterization steps. Flush insecticide from the coupler, dosing pump, and insecticide flow line, then flush the pump and agitation valve, clean the batch tank, evacuate fluid from the solenoid and flow meter, use compressed air to blow out the nozzle circuit. If you follow all the winterization steps in your manual and in this video, you should have a smooth system startup in the springtime.